Kare, kore ka uru mai e te i atu anō, ki roto i tēnei ware kōrero i te pōnei. Engari rā, ka timatake tato atu nei kōrero. Ka timatake ki te karakia. Ko te o ngā karakia ko akongia e tātou, i ngā marama ko ipa atu. Ara, ko te karakia nei, ko te kei te waka winiwini. Nō reira, kei te waka winiwini ngā tai o te pō, kei te waka wanawana ngā tai o te marama, kei te waka rurutu ngā tai o pūpuke te iiri, pūpuke te māara, pūpuke te Wānanga. Nō mai ara mai ki roto i tēnei Wānanga, i roto i tēnei ware kōrero o Ngāti Mutunga i tēnei pō. Ka peka atu rā te wakaro ki ngā tini aitua, uri no i te maunga, uri anō rā i te motu. Ko ngā mate ko koutou e kawe, ngā mate ko mātou e kawe. Ka wakatakatoria ki rungi te wāriki o te aro a katangi ia, ka poroporo a kitia. Tērā i tēte i o mātou, tātou anō rā, tēte o te wānau mātene, ka tuku atu rā te aroa ki te roonga wānau, mo te we ngā atu o tērā kaumātou o tātou. Nō reira, e tangi ana te ngākau o koutou rā. Ara, ka oki mai ki a mata ki a tātou nei o te ongo ora. Tātou ko uru nei ki roto i tēnei kōrero ki a rangona. Kia wero i anō rā i te pinati, mo e te i o ngā karakia i roto i te māramata ko Ngāti Mutunga. Ka aro tātou ki te karakia o te marama nei, no reira, tēnei kamihi. So I just want to welcome everyone to our kōrero for tonight. Great to have you with us. We'll focus on the karakia for this particular month, for August. I'll just do a little recap as well for the karakia last month, for those that weren't able to join us, and then just be able to recite that a couple of times because that's a lovely karakia. We think of those who have passed as well, around the maunga and around the motu, those loved ones that we carry, loved ones that you carry, and place them on the whāriki of love, and we remember and we grieve for those who have gone. We think of the whānau Martin here as well, who also have one of their kaumātua, one of their kōrero who has passed away. So we leave that with them, and we come back here to us, the hunga ora, to focus on tonight's kōrero. So I'll just share the screen so I can take us through some of the slides that we've got for tonight. If you've been involved in the last two Wānanga, we've caught up, so we're just doing the one Wānanga each, the one karakia each month. But I just thought I'd do a recap from last month's one as well. So I'll just share the screen. So these are our dates, of course. We're on to the 3rd of August. We've got our 7th of September, 12th of October, 2nd November and 14th of December Wānanga. And as you'll be aware, each of those months, we then focus on the karakia for that particular month. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, we're on to our 5th Wānanga this month, which is fantastic. So I just thought I'd take us back to last month, because we had a quick look at this karakia. This is a beautiful karakia. We often hear it here in Taranaki as karangatonga, karakia karangatonga, a karakia that's used during the morning as well. So a particular karakia that we use whenever there's an acknowledgement or a particular taonga, or someone's bringing on a taonga, or you're gifting a taonga. This is a karakia or a taki as well. That's used often. It's used quite a lot as well during the Urunga o te rā. So when we have Wānanga, we would normally have our wāine who would do karanga to the rising of the sun, would do karakia, and this is a lovely one just to wrap up that whole process, because it refers, of course, to the yata, as we can see, and the development of the morning. the things that we see within the environment that are growing and developing throughout that transition between night and day. And because we experience that transition, we then recognize that as a taonga. So it's almost like going to your favorite spot and watching the sun rise, and the feeling that you have within inside you when that occurs. So that's the reference to the taonga. So of course, heata ki runga, the morning above, heata ki raro, the morning below, heata ki te waka tutu, the morning that's starting to rise, heata ki te waka rito rito, the morning that's starting to blossom, heata uia, the morning that we see before us, heata rawia, the morning and everything that it brings with it, and heata taonga, the morning being a treasure. When we do this karakia by itself, we'll normally finish off with he taonga, but when you do it with a much larger karakia, you don't see that he taonga, you just go straight into the next verse. So you may have received a copy last month, a copy of all of the words for this particular karakia, the much longer version of it, and also an audio. So that's a real lovely one. So I'll just run through it a couple of times. So feel free to do that in your own space as well, just so that you can get familiar with the taki. E ata ki runga, e ata ki raro, e ata ki te waka tūtū, e ata ki te waka rito rito, e ata uia, e ata rawea, e ata taonga, e taonga. And normally you'd finish it off with tūturu waka maua kia tīna, or other variations of closing of karakia that you may use, such as e rongo e, or kiriaki ki runga, or simply haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. So I'll go through that another 2 more times and then we'll move on to our karakia for the month. E ata e ata ki runga, e ata ki raro, e ata ki te waka tūtū, e ata ki te waka rito rito, e ata uia, e ata rawea, e ata taonga, e taonga. Tūturu o iti waka maua kia tīna ui e, tai ki e. And just one more time. E ata ki runga, e ata ki raro, e ata ki te waka tūtū, e ata ki te waka rito rito, e ata uia, e ata rawea, e ata taonga, e taonga. Tūturu o iti waka maua kia tīna ui e, tai ki e. Ka pai. Okay, ka pai. Let's have a look at our next karakia. So the karakia for Here Turi Koka, or Akuhata, or August. So this is a lovely one as well. Again, just like Heata, this one comes from a much larger karakia. You tend to hear this particular one a bit more down at Aotea, and it's one that was used by tohunga as well when they came and landed at Aotea Harbour. I've heard it referenced as a karakia uru uru wenua, so as you're coming onto the land, and also seen it written as a karakia waka aui aui, or whaka awhi awhi. Again, it's all about ensuring that there's protection for us as we go into a new place, into a new space, and then being able to connect with those places and with those spaces. Some may be familiar with the first parts of the karakia, and you may have heard it in other settings. It tends to start off with kau ki uta kau ki tai kau ki tēnei whenua tau au. Piki piki maunga tā ngai, piki piki pari tā ngai, kei o mai tā ngai, and then it goes through all of these different forms of connecting to the particular place that we're going to. So whether it's connecting to the maunga, connecting to the river, connecting to the whenua, connecting to the pari, puke, that's what that first part of the karakia is in reference to. Then moves down into connecting with the things that give you or give us sustenance, then into the things that give us life and well-being, then into the mauri part of the karakia, so all about attaining the mauri and planting it into the whenua that we are entering onto. And then it comes into this particular part of the karakia. So there's some familiar words, of course, that you will see and may have heard in other previous wānanga that we've done. So the obvious ones, of course, we've got reference to rangi, rangi nui as well. And we all know, of course, rangi being either the sky, the heavens. Some may refer to rangi as a tupuna and the sky father. So these are all references that we use for rangi. In another context as well, when you often hear this, you may hear it as this duality, or this concept of duality and between nuku and rangi, or papatua nuku and rangi nui. We hear it as well with tai and uta. At times when you see those references of rangi and nuku, while they could mean papatua nuku and rangi nui, there are occasions where it also refers to us as an individual, and anything below the shoulders is nuku, and that's more about effort, labor. Everything from the shoulders up is rangi, and that's more about knowledge and learnings. So those are other references that we see in relation to rangi. Po, of course, features within this karakia. So when we think of a po, we think of something that's real solid, that's fixed in place. If we've been to marae or carved marae, for example, at Tikaroa Maui here in Waitara, there's the po toko manawa that sit within the middle of the warenui, and those are real stable po. There's the po out the front, the po kaiawa, and again, that's a real stable and movable type po. So when we're seeing references to po within this particular karakia, that's what we're thinking. We're thinking of a pillar, we're thinking of a post that's that's unshakable, that's movable, that won't fall, that won't lean. It's dependable, it's reliable. It's something that you can lean on and get support from. Those who do fencing may consider a strainer post as another example. If it's fixed in place right, it becomes an immovable object. And that's what we're referencing here. So, of course, we're talking about rangi nui, but it's all about, previous to this particular stanza, it talks about mauri and the life force and connecting with that. And now we're cementing this in place. So we can either consider it as a seed that we plant and that grows strong, or we can consider it as a po that we're really nailing and cementing into the ground so that it doesn't move. So if we look at the first line, ko rangi turuturua, so these words may not be familiar to everyone, but it can mean upright. So rangi turuturua to more mean a po that's, or rangi that's standing upright. Rangi tā maua, the core word within that is mo, and we know mo is to grasp and to hold. So it's more being secure. So it's ensuring that things are secure above. If you get things secure above and things secured below, then the po itself won't be moved, it won't be shaken. So this is what this karakia, for me anyway, is what this karakia is aiming to achieve within the broader sense of the karakia itself. And so again, rangi that's standing upright, rangi that's secure above. So e tū rangi e take wai also, kei reira a rangi above us. Ko te pou o te waka tina, so we hear tina quite regularly as a closing part of our karakia, and more around those who agree. We also see tina in relation to being fixed, so being caused to be fixed into place, so being solidified. Ko te pou o te waka toka, so the pou that's been being crystallized as sorts. So it's been put into the ground, and then it's been, the imagery for me is having rocks that are placed around the pou and the hole, just to ensure that it becomes a real stable pou, or being cemented in place so that it becomes immovable. Ko te pou o te parapara, it's an interesting term, parapara, because we tend to hear it in a particular context. So when we hear parapara, we may hear it as ipupara, such as a rubbish bin, parapara to mean rubbish, paraone or paraone, that we use for brown, which is like the what do you call it, the dirty, the mixture of dirt and soil, that type of paraone or paraone. Within this context, for me, it's more probably about if you look up parapara, you'll find that it also has references to talents, to gifts. So for me, it's all about putting the pou and in place, and then we get the benefits from that. Ko te pou o tēnei matua iwi. We've come across this particular term a couple of times, and we've discussed it a couple of times during these Wānanga series. You may be familiar with it or see it within karakia such as tēnei te ara. So tēnei te ara kei runga, ko te aro tēnei tipo, ko te aro tēnei ariki, ko te aro tēnei matua iwi. In one context, matua iwi, matua iwi, is in reference to the matua of our iwi. So for us in Ngāti Mutunga, the matua of our iwi, of course, is mutunga. Mutunga te tangata, so the eponymous ancestor. And in that sense, ko te pou o tēnei matua iwi, it's more about the example that gets set from our role models, and our matua iwi being one of those particular role models. In another sense, matua iwi could be considered as a main grouping of an iwi, and in particular those who are often seen as the backbone for the iwi. If you consider your haukainga, you'd know that there's a couple of wānau, or a handful of wānau, or even maybe more wānau, but it's these wānau who are always seen at the marae, who ensure that the ahi ka is maintained, he kanuhi kitea, so they're always seen. So that's another reference to matua iwi. It's those who are the backbone of our iwi, those that can be depended upon when iwi kaupapa come up. Ko te pou o Ranginui e tū nei. So again, we've come from Ranginui, who's upright, so ko rangi turuturua, ko rangi tamaua, rangi who is secure, who is fixed in place above, and rangi who is above us, down to being able to put the pou into the ground. So ko te pou o rangi nui e tūnei, the pou's been established, and it's now standing up and connecting rangi and papa. So for me, it's a lovely way of ending this particular stanza, or this particular witi of the Karakia, because it's set in place and it's referencing that it's set above and it's set below. So it becomes an immovable object above and an immovable object below. And for me, it's really about what are our desires, what are our wishes, what are our intentions in coming into this new place? What are we hoping to achieve? But by going through this practice and doing this, was effectively cementing in what it is that we are wanting to achieve and how we are wanting to achieve it. So just go back through the karakia again, ko rangi turuturua. So turuturu or turu as reference to two, and to be standing upright. Rangi tā maua, again, the root word or the core word within that is mau, to hold, or to fix, to be secure. E tū rangi e take wai o, so rangi that then sits above us. So once we've got that fixed in place, we then come down below and then we fix below in place. And we do that by establishing this particular pou. So ko te pou o te wakatina, the pou that has been fixed, that has been secured. Ko te pou o te wakatoka, the pou that has been solidified in place. Ko te pou o te parapara, that the pou that holds our aspirations, our abilities, the things that would result in us having the gifts and the talents required to understand what we need to do within this new land. Ko te pou o tēnei matua iwi, being able to set in place the foundations that will help to build a strong people and a strong iwi. Ko te pou o rangi nui e tūnei, then connecting rangi and papa, or papa and rangi, to then cement that pou from above and to cement that pou from below. So as I mentioned earlier, this comes from a much larger karakia, an Aotea waka karakia, and a particular karakia that they used when they first ventured off the waka. They landed at Hawaii Iti at Aotea Harbour, and then ventured onto the land. Part of that process as well was, so the captain, we may know or be familiar with for Aotea waka, was of course Turi, or Turi Ariki Nui. His waine was rongorongo. There's a lot of kōrero about rongorongo, no rongorongo te waka. So it was rongorongo's father who built the waka for her. And then they ventured over to Aotearoa, and she also carried with her a tōpuni kuri, or a dog skin cloak. And as they ventured from Aotea Harbour coming down to Taranaki, she would often lay that cloak down and then do particular karakia that would establish their mana whenua during and ensure protection as they were travelling down to Taranaki. So those who are aware, Aotea waka, of course, didn't land here in Taranaki, landed at Aotea Harbour at Hawaii Iti, and then they walked, following specific instructions, to then find the river of Pātea. Aotea is quite fortunate in that it has a number of karakia. It still has a lot of that kōrero that's been recorded. So if you typed any of those phrases in, you'll find the much larger karakia, and it starts with kau, kau, kiuta. And as I mentioned earlier, you would see the references to the particular type of karakia, and it's generally called the whakaawiawi or the waka-awiawi. So that's a particular type of karakia, and that's all about protection when you're coming into a new place. Ka pai. So again, we've got some key references in there around rangi and around pou, but a beautiful karakia that can be used for either the start of a kaupapa. If you've got a particular kōrero or kaupapa that you're presenting that hasn't yet been agreed upon, this could be a good karakia to start that, because it's all about you wanting to establish this vision. It could be after a meeting as well, where you've actually agreed, yes, this is the pathway, this is where we're going, this is what we want to do. You've then established your pou, you've put your pou in the ground at that stage. So again, it's a pretty versatile karakia, just like the rest of them are. They can be used in most situations. Ones that you wouldn't use it in, of course, is in kai or any reference to mate. But one that I would use in particular situations where we are talking about new directions, explaining directions, or we're all coming together for a particular purpose and it's an agreed purpose. Because at that stage, we've already established our pou. Ko tīna te pou, ko toka. Ko mau i ngā parapara. Ko kite I te matua iwi. So we've already established it, it's already fixed in place, it's already solidified. We've seen some of the benefits that's come from that. We see the role models that help us to progress our kaupapa, and then we see our kaupapa coming to fruition and being developed further. So that's our karakia for tonight. Any kōrero, any pātai about this particular one? So again, really encourage you to learn these karakia, because they're really useful in many different situations. Our intention was to ensure that our wānau had a series of 12 karakia by the end of this year that you had a pretty good understanding about. You had some confidence to be able to recite them. You were able to recite them with a particular taki that's familiar to you, that helps you to learn, and being able to do it in relevant places and within relevant situations, and being able to do it within the right context as well. So this, of course, is our eighth karakia, but you've really encouraged you, wānau, to learn these ones. They're only short ones, and they're meant to be short, easy to learn, and entirely up to you as to, because you may find, and I do myself, that all 12 of these karakia may not sit right with you, or you may not be able to remember them or memorize them or have a nice taki for them, which is fine. You just find the ones that really do resonate with you, and it might be 2 or 3 of these karakia from this calendar. And if there are 2 to 3 that you can do on a more regular basis and be able to use them in more everyday situations, you'll find that you can just draw on these karakia all the time. Whenever you need it, you don't have to remember it, you don't have to practice it. Ko u ki tō ngākau, it's ready there, and then you just need to draw it out. And as soon as you say the first line, you'll find that you'll be able to remember the entire karakia itself. Ka pai. Just check if there's a question. Te take. Is that in relation to e tū rangi e take waiho, Chris? Or you referring to the taki?
I'm just wondering, is he taki tōna?
You mean like a beat to recite it in?
Yes.
Yes, there is. And for me, it's the one that I probably started off with kau ki uta.
Mm-hmm.
So that one is kau ki uta, kau ki tai. So for me, if we carry that taki through, so ko rangi turuturua, ko rangi tā maua e tūrangi e take wai o. ko te pou o te wakatīna, ko te pou o te wakatoka, ko te pou o te parapara, ko te pou o tēnei matua iwi, ko te pou o rangi nui e tū nei. So that's a taki for me that I would use for this particular one.
And katahi ka whakamutua kia pēhea?
Kai a koe, kai a koutou. So with these karakia, you can wrap them up in a particular way that you're familiar with. For me, I'd wrap this up with turuturu o Te Whakamaua.
Oh,
yeah,
yep.
so that's another one. So e rongo, kiriake ki runga. So you could simply wrap it up as haumie, uie, tai ki e.
Okay.
Others may be familiar with the likes of wano, aramai te toki. The Māori karakia, of course, you tend to hear the close uhi, oero, taumai te Māori, haumie, uie. So these are all different ways that you tend to hear karakia being wrapped up or being closed, kia whakakapi ake I ngā karakia. Here in Taranaki, you tend to hear more often than not. E rongo e, o kiriake ki runga, tūturu o i te Whakamaua kia tīna, uie, tai ki e. So maybe just do the taki of the karakia a couple times for those that want to join in within your own space. Nō reira, ko rangi turuturua, ko rangi tāmaua e tūrangi e take wai o. Ko te pou o te wakatīna, ko te pou o te wakatoka, ko te pou o te parapara, ko te pou o tēnei matua iwi, ko te pou o rangi nui e tū nei. Tūturu o i te Whakamaua kia tīna, uie, tai ki e. And I'll do it one more time. Ko rangi turuturua, ko rangi tāmaua e tūrangi e take wai o. Ko te pou o te wakatīna, ko te pou o te wakatoka, ko te pou o te parapara, ko te pou o tēnei matua iwi, ko te pou o rangi nui e tū nei. E rongo e o kiriake ki runga tūturu o i te Whakamaua kia tīna, uie, tai ki e. Hapai, any other kōrero ānau, any other pātai? These are good little sessions, these, because they only last for about 30 minutes, because we're only focusing on one particular karakia. We'll ensure that we get the recording up and put that onto the YouTube channel for those that like to play it back and re-watch it. I always find it good to listen to these kinds of kōrero while I'm working, just with some headphones on, then you're having this playing in the background. So just coming back to our slide again, so we've got our next wānanga on the 7th of September, and that will focus on that particular karakia for that month. Ka pā, o te mea anō rā kia koutou, kia tātou rā, ko uru nei ki roto i tēnei ware kōrero Ngāti Mutunga mo te pōnei. Kia rongo ake rā i ngā uatango o tēnei o ngā momo karakia. Ko tōna momo, ko te waka aui, kia wakamaramaru anō rā i te unga tangata, te unga ora, e takahi ana i rongo i te whenua au. Pera i Aotea waka, i a turi, a rongorongo mai, a rātou i tā wawa. Nō reira, tēnei te mea anō rā kia koutou, kia tātou rā, me tēnei kaupapa kia pai eretia nei tātou i tēnei pō. Nō reira, ka whakakapi ake rā tēnei uinga, tēnei kōrero ki te karakia o te marama, te karakia o te pōnei. Ara, ko rangi turuturua. Nō reira, ko rangi turuturua, ka rangi tā maua e tūrangi e take wai o. Ko te pou o te wakatīna, ko te pou o te wakatoka, ko te pou o te parapara, ko te pou o tēnei matua iwi, ko te pou o rangi nui e tū nei. E rongo e wakiriake ki runga tūturu o i te Whakamaua kia tīna, uie, tai ki e. Ka pai. Tēnā koutou e te wānau. Pō Mārie.